fruitful, creative discussion. Those words are going to stay with me as I lead into this conversation. Very pleased to welcome today Rajeev Dimri, Leader Indirect Tax at BMR and Associates. Mr. Dimri, good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us on NDTV. And I know that it was a busy day, so we really do appreciate you making the time. Good to have you on the channel. Now, it's day 2 of the GST Council meet. And, first off, what's the sense you've got from day 1? You're a close watcher of this space and the progress of GST.
Well, whatever was the progress, I think it was a good progress in terms of the fact that GST Council is up and running and is formally meeting. It is now a constitutional body, as everybody is aware. There is a change in dynamic because this body, as empowered committee, has met several times and has been meeting over a long period. But this is a formal body where the Union Finance Minister and the Union government formally comes in. So obviously some of the issues that are up on the table in terms of rate, in terms of powers, in terms of compensation are not easy ones. These things will take time, but I'm sure these things are right up front on the table, and I think that in itself is a huge progress because issues are being talked about and hopefully they will be decided.
Okay, but everyone seems to be committed based on the discussions that occurred on day 1 that April 1, 2017 is a deadline or a timeline that will be honored. I have asked you this question in the past and I will continue to ask it, Mr. Dimri, every time we meet. Is that April 1, 2017 mark realistic?
From the government perspective, realistic. So far the deadlines and the timelines have been on and have been ahead of time. But the most actionable information is going to be about the laws, the rules, the forms, and the GST and rollout. And those things are likely to happen towards the later part of the year, starting November middle. And I think that's most crucial. If the laws come out on time, the rules are clear, the forms are all in place, and there are not many states which are divergences across states, it is realistic. But if states delay rollout of the laws and the rules come out later, things could go wrong. So a lot depends what will happen between November, December and January.
Okay, interesting that you say that, Mr. Dimri. And I ask, given that we now know that the rail budget and the union budget are going to be merged, that there is some talk and agreement in principle to advance the budget schedule as well. And I'm wondering how this is all going to happen. This is going to be a finance ministry that's got to have to work 24 hours a day, every single day of the week, to address 2 new ideas and concepts simultaneously.
Yes, and I agree that there is a lot to be achieved. I do think that the process of budget making this particular year was anyway advanced. As you're aware, usually the government starts that in November. This year they started that in September. So some part of the work, I would imagine, has already started to happen. It is the states that will have to come back and advance their timelines, because this is not just what the union government will do. Each and every state government has to match up on the speed, and that is where the timelines are contingent upon. So I hope that the speed at which so far the things have moved continues to happen. States continue to pitch in, but it's not just Union Finance Ministry, but the state finance ministries also that have to pitch in.
Let's talk about the 3 points which are really being hotly debated and will continue to be hotly debated at the GST Council meet, although, we'll have clarity by the end of day today on, the extent of consensus built. The threshold, the GST threshold, there are some unconfirmed reports right now about 20 lakhs being a number. I don't want to go into the whole speculation of it, but resolution to setting the GST threshold, that's going to be key. And what, is a reasonable number based on your own analysis?
Well, it is obviously a key number because, one, it talks about how many people will be within the administration. The burden of administration will fall on how many number. This has been a matter of discussion for many years. The tax policy will guide us to say higher the number, the better it is, because just having many more people register doesn't necessarily give you more revenue, and therefore higher a number keeps administration cleaner and keeps a lot of the last mile connectivity out of the picture, and that reduces complexity. However, state administration somehow feels more equipped to collect taxes if they have more people in the registration network. So it's a conflicting idea whether should the threshold limit be low so that everybody comes into the registration network, or should the threshold limit be high. I personally vote for a higher threshold rather than a lower threshold. Just having too many people registered for taxes doesn't mean we collect taxes from everybody. So that's one part, but yes, 20 lakhs is far better than 10 lakhs that was originally being thought about, so I welcome that. The second part, of course, is having registered, what is the composition rate? Because you do want to keep very small taxpayers not into the full rigors of, maintaining books of accounts and input, output. So two numbers are important, the basic threshold limit, and second, the composition limit, which is being talked about anywhere between 50 to 75 lakhs. So again, higher that number will make this whole introduction of GST easier. Over a period of time, you can roll it down further down, but at the entry stage, if they can keep both the limits higher, I think that will make entry a much easier process.
In fact, Mr. Dimri, we have the Finance Minister, Arun Jaitley, actually kicking off a briefing, but since we actually have that, let's cut across.
Now, the Constitution Amendment itself carves out an exemption for Northeast and the 3 hill states. And therefore, we had flagged the issue as to what the exemption figures threshold should be. We had informally discussed it before the meeting also, and in the meeting it was formally decided that as far as the exemption threshold is concerned, it is fixed at 20 lakh rupees. So those with a turnover of below 20 lakhs annually are exempted from the GST. As far as the northeastern and the hill states are concerned, this exemption limit is fixed at rupees 10 lakhs. The fourth item of agenda which came up for discussion was with regard to the compensation law and the draft compensation formula. Now, a few decisions were taken as to what are the items which are to be included in the revenue. Therefore, all items including cesses would be included in the revenue. That's how the word revenue would be described. The general consensus was that the payment of compensation should be at regular intervals, quarterly or bi-monthly. The third important decision which we took was that the base year for calculation of the compensation would be 2015-16. There is a fourth issue on which several suggestions came up as to what should be the method of projecting the increase in revenue for the next 5 years. Now, we've taken all those 3 or 4 suggestions which came up, and it was decided that the officers would in the meanwhile discuss this, and therefore in a future meeting we would then decide which of the various options is the best option. There was an option that we can fix a fixed rate, that this is the projected increase over the next 5 years for each year. Alternatively, we can look at the past and take the past 5 years and select the 3 best out of the 5 years. There was a third proposal that we can pick up the past 5 years and exclude the 2 outliers and take the mid 3. So these kind of suggestions have come up. Now, which is the most appropriate formulation, the officers will discuss and make a presentation in the next meeting itself. The fifth and the last item is with regard to dual control. Because under the GST, with regard to VAT, excise duties and the service tax, there will be only one assessment now being done. So who assesses which assessees? Because centre and state government also both have jurisdiction in the matter, and this is a concurrent jurisdiction. Now this has been a very complicated issue which the Empowered Committee has been discussing over the last several months also. So finally we decided that as far as all assessees below rupees 1.5 crores are concerned, turnover that is, the assessment would be by the officials of the states. These even today are those people who are being assessed to VAT, and that is a state taxation. And therefore the present status quo would continue. Above 1.5 crores, there will be an assessment which is possible for the purposes of central excise by centre, for VAT by the state. And therefore this category, which accounts for bulk of the revenue, there would be an element of dual control, and there would be a cross empowerment of the officers of the centre and the state governments. Which assessee is assessed by whom will be decided on the basis of a formulation, namely the risk assessment by both the centre and the state, and which of the two authorities has a higher risk assessment would assess it. And then how that assessee's control would change subsequently, these are minor details which the officers in the minutes that they will draw out, they will in the scheme draw out a final analysis. There is one more category, that is about 11 lakh service tax assessees, where the expertise for assessment is with the centre. The present lot would continue to be assessed by the centre, but in due course, competence and ability of the state officers would also be developed in this, and therefore future additions would be shared, and this arrangement of these 11 lakhs being assessed by the centre would continue till the scheme is altered after we have a training program as far as the states are concerned, because the states still have to be trained for this particular purpose. And therefore, the details of this, the final details, the fine print would eventually be worked out, but the principles have been completely agreed in the the committee. We have now one major issue and two incidental issues which are left. We'll be meeting on the 30th of this month once again, where we'll finalize and approve the draft rules which are being prepared by the officers. There are 5 categories of rules. How are the exemptions to be implemented? For instance, Northeast, hill states, there are some area-wise exemption and some industry-wise exemptions that the states have given. Would they not be charged, or would they be charged and then the DBT process would apply? So these two issues would be discussed on the 30th. Hopefully we'll try and conclude these issues on the 30th. And that then will leave one major issue to be decided, which is the issue of the rates and the slabs. The officers would be completing their exercise in the meanwhile, And for that purpose, we'll be meeting on the 17th, 18th and 19th of October and hopefully trying to finalize those cases. So therefore, as far as dual control is concerned, below 1.5 lakhs state, above 1.5 lakhs with both, and 11 lakh service tax crores, and above 11 lakh service tax assessees for the present with the center.
So 1.5 cutoff is in respect of VAT dealers. The service tax dealers, even if they are below 1.5, will continue to be with the central government. So the entire base of service tax as it is now, below 1.5 will be with the central government, and above 1.5 we will devise a
And
methodology.
we'll meanwhile be training these states also with regard to service tax.
थ्रेशोल्ड पे क्या फैसला हुआ है? थ्रेशोल्ड पे क्या फैसला हुआ है? हिंदी में एक बार तो थ्रेशोल्ड वाला हिंदी में बताओ।
देखिए, थ्रेशोल्ड पे ये फैसला हुआ है कि अभी तक जो 1.5 करोड़ तक की टर्नओवर जिनकी वैट की है, वो राज्यों की असेसमेंट में आता है, वो परिस्थिति कंटिन्यू करेगी। जो 1.5 करोड़ से ऊपर वाले हैं, उसमें सेंट्रल एक्साइज भी लगता था और वैट भी लगता है, वो ड्यूअल कंट्रोल में रहेगा। हर असेसी का एक रिस्क असेसमेंट होता है, जो कि स्टेट और सेंट्रल दोनों असेसिंग अथॉरिटीज तय करेंगे। जिसका अधिक होगा वो उसको असेस करेगा, क्योंकि एक सीमित मात्रा में, जैसे 5% असेसीज का सिर्फ स्क्रूटनी होता है, बाकी की असेसमेंट स्वीकार कर ली जाती है। इसके अतिरिक्त 11 लाख जो सर्विस टैक्स असेसी है, क्योंकि वो क्षमता अभी केंद्र के पास ही है, तो वो केंद्र के पास रहेंगे। राज्यों को उसकी ट्रेनिंग देने का एक प्रोसेस हम लोग आरंभ करेंगे।
और सर 10 लाख और 25 लाख तक जो था
एग्जेम्पशन लिमिट के संबंध में हम लोगों ने स्पष्ट तय किया है कि पूर्वोत्तर और हिल स्टेट्स के 10 लाख की टर्नओवर एग्जेम्प्शन रहेगी और बाकी देश के अंदर 20 लाख तक की टर्नओवर एग्जेम्प्टेड रहेगी।
सारे निर्णय आम सहमति से हुए
नहीं, अभी तक वोटिंग की जरूरत नहीं पड़ी, आम सहमति से सारे निर्णय हो रहा है। धन्यवाद।
नहीं, उसमें ड्यूअल कंट्रोल नहीं रहेगा।
Finance Minister Arun Jaitley making a couple of points. The exemption threshold limit fixed at 20 lakhs. In the case of northeastern states, it's 10 lakhs. The base year for compensation determination is 2015-16. All cesses to be included in revenue for GST. The big discussion that took place was on issue of dual control. All assessees below 1.5 crore rupees turnover will be assessed by the states. Those above 1.5 crore turnover, there will be dual control, and there's a formulation that has been agreed upon for assessing risk and then determining jurisdiction. 11 lakh service tax assessees. Currently, the capability, as Finance Minister Arun Jaitley said, rests with the centre, and therefore the jurisdiction and control will be with the centre. As capability is developed among the states, the shift will happen. We're just going to go across to Rajeev Dimri to get a quick reaction from him. Mr. Dimri, you heard Finance Minister Arun Jaitley there. The part that you missed was on the exemption limit, which has been fixed at 20 lakhs. Your thoughts?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, 20 lakhs is far better than 10 lakhs that was earlier being talked about. So I certainly welcome that. As I mentioned, it will be important to see above 20 lakhs, up to what point will they go for a composition scheme, would be another important decision to be seen. I hope it remains high. That will ease administration. So on an overall basis, I think the threshold limit is far better than what was originally being thought of.
Okay, and the fact that, the dual control formula below 1.5 crore goes to the centre, and above 1.5 crore turnover, there's a dual control mechanism. Also, service tax assessees stays with the centre for now. Your response, your thoughts on that?
Well, to begin with, I think dual control in itself is not a good idea. It's for the taxpayer, it is going to complicate their lives. So below 1.5 crores, staying with the state, at least there is a centrality of a structure, works well. Service tax assessees staying with the center works well. But this concept of people in between, which are manufacturing companies, to have a dual control based on risk assessment, that is going to be, sounds like trouble there, because, you know, if states and center will start upping the risk profile, there's going to be somewhat of a competition as to who's going to assess those companies. When it comes to service companies, not always the matter is very clean. So if we look at banks, they are liable for service tax as well as liable for VAT. So it's not always that a service taxpayer or a service tax registered company is exclusively in services. They may have other taxes as well. They may have mixed profile. One will have to see how that will evolve. But at its core, if a company is going to be exposed to double, double jurisdiction, that's something that the industry is not happy with. Industry has been demanding that you decide who will have control, but there should be one control rather than dual control. So I can see some debate happening between the industry and the government on this one aspect. Service sector should be happier with a central control, because that's what they have been used to, and that situation continues for them.
Mr. Dimri, I'm going to take a quick break. It's long overdue, and I hope that we'll be able to pick up this conversation in a few minutes, but I'll leave that decision to you. Quick break coming up. We are back with Rajeev Dimri, leader indirect tax at BMR and Associates, picking up the conversation from where we left off. Mr. Dimri, I'm glad we could have you for longer. Really appreciate it. Mr. Jaitley in his press conference there talking about a few issues that still remain. One major issue, he said, and two minor issues, and I'm quoting him here. So there is another meeting scheduled for September 30th where the GST Council is going to review and approve the 5 categories of rules and also look at how exemptions are to be implemented. What would you flag off in terms of potential sticky areas when it comes to that meet?
Well, that is a very, very important issue, not just for the government, but for the industry, because, many of these large investments have been made based on, the incentives that were offered and contracted between the government and the taxpayer. So whether we look at area-based exemptions in Northeast, in Uttaranchal and Himachal and the hill states, they were based on the current law. That law is yet to expire. There are 3-4 years of remaining period left. Large investments have been made with that assumption. Now, if that were to change, that has a material impact on the economics of the company. But it also is a design issue for GST, because exemptions are somewhat incompatible in a GST environment. On the other hand, there are state incentives where large projects have been committed in a particular state based on a contract or a scheme that state government had about starting investments. Very, very big issue. It has huge commercials, riding on it. So industry is surely rightfully expecting that while there may be some changes that may have to be done in these schemes, but the economic benefit that has been promised to the companies has to remain. Otherwise, it becomes a material development adverse to the business. On the other hand, states have to only compensate what they collect from each project. So it's a tricky issue, and one would also imagine that a common policy across the country should work rather than material differences from one state to another. This also was a major issue at the time when country moved from sales tax system into a VAT system. But states were able to handle that, although there was not one particular scheme, there were 2-3 versions of the scheme that came out, but somehow they were able to preserve it. And that expectation continues. So it is a material issue, and I hope the outcome is good in the next meeting.
Indeed. As you've articulated it, from the point of view of investors in those specific regions and states, this is actually going to be very keenly scrutinized and watched. But in Mr. Jaitley's words, the one big issue that still needs to be addressed and is potentially going to be addressed in the meeting that occurs between the 17th to the 19th of October is on rates and slabs. I do feel like you must be wondering, I've asked you these questions so many times, but again, what would you flag off in the context of the rates and slabs discussion, where points of view and discussion can get quite heated?
Yes, and this is not the first time, not just about our conversation, but the conversation in the country. I think it's been going on for many years. We've had multiple reports ranging from 12% R&R rate to 27% R&R rate. So as you can imagine, some real experts and big agencies, depending on what assumptions gets made, have a very wide sweep of ranges. And we've also seen political developments where 18% is being negotiated as a rate. A lot of debate happened on that. My personal view is that for it to be a successful tax in the country, it should begin at as low rate as economically possible, because do realize that it is also offsetting taxes on goods versus taxes on services, and services today are at 15%. There is an overall stretch that the services can absorb in increasing the rate, because rates for services will have to go up. The question is how far will the customer, will the consumer accept. So just that, forget the competing interests and forget the politics around it. Just from the fact that 50% of our economy, of our GDP is comprised services, which you and I as consumers consume, there's a limit of how much tax can be passed on as far as services are concerned. So I do believe that it should be as low a rate as possible. Now, will it be 18? Will it be 19? Will it be 20? Will it be 21? Is a matter of debate. I personally think it needs to be anywhere between 18 and 21. Anything higher than that, A, will not work for services, and B, will not give the benefit to the manufacturing sector what is being expected. So, but that's just my point of view. I'm sure we will see some interesting debate on 17th and 18th of October, but needless to say, it is one of the biggest decisions that country is waiting for, because a lot of calculations of companies about their economics, about their working capital, about their pricing is hinged on that one single decision as to what are the rates and what are the slabs.
Mr. Dimri, I'm so glad that we got our timing absolutely right in terms of our conversation today. Thank you very much for joining us on NDTV. Really value your insights.
Thank you.
We're going to take a very quick break. After that, we'll take a look at what's going on in the markets. A whole bunch of, trading points that we need to cover. We'll do that in a couple of minutes from now.